I can do the start while we're waiting for her. So I'll declare the inaugural meeting of the Environment Planning Committee Coast Council open at 7 p.m. And I'll do the acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live. We wish to pay our respects to Dark County country, Nelson past and present. We acknowledge the continued connection to these lands and waterways and extend this acknowledgement to the homelands and stories of those who call this place home. We acknowledge our future leaders and the shared responsibility to care for and protect our place and people. I note all the members of the committee are now present, and I think there's an apology from the mayor, but he's not actually a member of the committee unless I've got that wrong.
Not a member of all committees by default.
No, I think we changed that, but anyhow, we'll report his apology. Does somebody want to move that? The accepted move, Councillor Wright, second, Councillor Merlin. I'll put that all those opposed say aye, and he gets to that carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? I'm not proceeding to ask everyone. If anyone's got a disclosure, I'll ask they disclose it now. Otherwise, I'll note there has been no disclosures. I'm also going to propose that we do two things. One, that we use the exception method, but I'll come to that in a minute. Procedurally, I do want to bring forward item 1.10, Masters Beach, coastal protection works. So I'll move that method be brought forward. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Wright. Any discussion on that? It's only a procedural motion. With that, all of say aye. Any against, carried. And now I need to also put a so we have the president of the Masters Beach Surf Club here, and I indicated that I would seek permission for her to address the committee. So move to bring in a procedural motion that she be given leave to address the committee. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Smith. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Any against? That and carry. Okay, Alison, if you want to, sure, I'll seek advice from the staff. Where should she? No, I know that. Where should she address from? Just up in front of the screen somewhere.
Yeah. Right into it. Thank you everyone for having me tonight. I'm Alison McNeil, President of McMasters Beach Surf Club. I know that there was a meeting at 4 o'clock today to discuss the damage at Wombrel and North Entrance. I would like to emphasise the fact that the rock bag protection structure for McMasters Beach is in no way connected to the problems in those other suburbs. So I really implore you all to look at our problem with fresh eyes. It has nothing to do with the other two suburbs. I speak on behalf of the board of McMasters Beach Surf Lifesaving Club and our 545 members to urgently request the continuation of the revetment works at McMasters Beach. I also have here tonight, we have two members of the Progress Association and McMasters Beach board riders, Mac's own board riders, have put in an apology they were unable to come. So as you can see, our groups are all united. We are all together. We are all on the same page.
Just to clarify, Alison,
yep.
Do you have any material from the board riders to say that they support the temporary works?
With me, no, but my understanding is they have emailed.
Okay. I didn't get an email from them, but
no,
I had a phone call just before we left this evening from their president who informed me of all of this and put in his apology for coming tonight, but I can make sure that they have sent that email as well. Should have gone to everybody.
Can we leave the questions till
sorry.
the end of the speech, and then I'm sure we can have some questions.
Following the significant storm events in 2016, a large section of our embankment was severely eroded. With council's permission, we installed bulker bags as a temporary stabilisation measure to prevent the loss of the area in front of our clubhouse. Unfortunately, these bags have now deteriorated, several have broken apart, and the beach and embankment beneath and around them are rapidly washing away, exposing more rock and creating further instability. We are deeply concerned that without immediate action, we will lose the iconic Norfolk Island pines, as well as the paved area and fencing on the beach side of the clubhouse. The side of the seawall is wholly owned and managed by council. This area extends to the middle of the paved area. Crown Land own the remainder of the paved area immediately adjacent to the clubhouse. Funding for this project has been secured and remained allocated since 2016 when it was first promised. At that time, Alan Blackman, our former president, served as the point of contact, and I have taken on this responsibility. There have been 2 previous versions of the seawall, an initial concept design in 2017, followed by an engineered design version in February 21. The latter was displayed at McMaster's Beach by another group, which led to community backlash, as many believed the surf club had endorsed the plan. However, we did not support or agree to that design. Throughout the recent community consultation process, I advocated for transparency and requested that all key stakeholders be brought together in our clubhouse. At the initial meeting, we were presented with 4 design options and as a group unanimously selected the rock bag solution. At the second meeting, the completed design drawings were shared and it was agreed the wall would be constructed during our off-season to minimise beach disruption. I also requested the council mark out the wall location on a weekend and take the lead in informing the public to relieve our local groups of that responsibility. Unfortunately, the community information session was scheduled for a Wednesday, which limited attendance due to work commitments. While the club notified our members, we did not encourage participation in the follow-up survey as we believed the project was already confirmed based on the shared design. As such, the survey results that you all have do not accurately reflect the broader views of the McMaster's Beach community. Unfortunately, the layout on the beach caused confusion as the toe of the seawall was marked on the sand further out than it should be. Many people believe the wall, that part of it, will be under the sand. Many people believe the wall will be built out to that point. There is also a perception that the paved area around the clubhouse, the hard surface, has contributed to the erosion. This is incorrect. The paving was constructed according to council specifications with a permeable sand base beneath the pavers to allow for proper drainage. In contrast, the continuous leak from the council installed shower pipe along the fence line has been a contributing factor to the erosion, as well as the erosion coming from people just using the shower in general. McMaster's Beach is not only a vital operational area for our club, but also a beloved space used daily by locals, visitors and community groups, including Tai Chi, yoga, swim clubs and the Community Bridge Club. It hosts significant events such as our Twilight Anzac service, which next year celebrates 20 years. It is attended by over 300 people annually and is the launch site for the Five Lands Walk, including its smoking ceremony. The clubhouse is used on this day to showcase HSC art major works also. Our clubhouse serves as a venue for weddings and community functions. I spoke today with the local bridge club who use our clubhouse, and they are all adamant that the rock bag protection should be constructed immediately. The next storm could be detrimental to our extremely important community hub. As one of the 15 surf lifesaving clubs providing essential emergency services on the Central Coast, our volunteers dedicate themselves to protecting beachgoers. Unlike the 12 clubs housed in council-owned buildings, McMaster's Beach, the Lakes and North Entrance clubs operate from Crown Land leases and are fully self-funded. We rely solely on grants for funding, grants that we must compete for alongside council-owned clubs. We rarely ask for assistance. We are asking now. Our only beach access for emergency equipment is currently completely broken and unsafe and will remain so until the rock bag protection is constructed. This project is urgent. The bulker bags are failing and we face the real possibility of trees falling onto the beach and the community constructed Anzac fence breaking, further endangering the area. Yes, the primary supporters of protection works are those affiliated with the Surf Lifesaving Club. We are 545 strong and have served this community for over 80 years. It is our 80-year anniversary this year. Yes, there is a perception that council is responsible for protection, despite the club being located on Crown Land. However, that part of the boundary is owned and managed wholly by council. So yes, it is the responsibility of council. We respectfully request that the council continue coordinating with Crown Lands to fulfil the commitment made in 2016 and to safeguard this critical community asset. Thank you for your consideration and for supporting the future of McMaster's Beach.
Thanks, Alison. Questions?
Yes,
Just more so about the process and how long it took to get general consensus and what did you go about to get there? How did you get there?
all of us together.
Yeah.
We have been on the same page since we had the community consultation, all within the surf club.
Yep.
What we have all noticed is that we're all looking at our asset, but coming at it from different angles. So obviously we're trying to protect the surf club. The Progress Association are trying to protect their local resource because we're a community club and hub. The Board Riders Association, they're worried about the surf break, but also agree that we need to do something. The rock bags can be removed if anything happens, anything surf changes or any of that. So everybody is on the same page with that. The local wildlife group as well also said the animals can climb up this. So, you know, everybody seems to be on the same page.
Has it been a hard process or a good
No.
one? So,
No, it's just getting us all together in the one room and being able to discuss everything.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
Thank you for coming along. I'm struggling a little bit because we're getting conflicting information. So are you're proposing or you're requesting us to continue the temporary measures that are in
Yes.
the capital works budget?
Yep.
Sorry, okay.
Yep.
We've got a recommendation here that is really talking about completing a coastal risk and options assessment for a longer term solution. Wouldn't that be a better way to go? Admittedly, I will be asking staff about what time frame we might be looking at, but that just seems to me like a better way to go. And look, I am getting conflicting information from the report, from other people, from McMaster's Beach, that it isn't wholly one view.
No, the survey that was put out, we didn't realise at the time that it was a survey. We thought that the plans that we put in place were happening. We were told that the wall was starting after the patrol season. So we didn't think we actually had to put in our for and against or any of that sort of thing with that.
So sorry, the temporary protection you're talking
The
about?
rock bag wall, yes. It's called temporary, but they can last a very,
So they've broken up, they're damaged. Aren't they the ones that were initially there?
the bulk of bags that were placed there were a very temporary option.
Yeah.
So they were only there to last a couple of years, and 10 years, almost 10 years later, they're still there. We're still waiting for something to be done.
Yeah.
Our understanding, and Ben can probably inform us better of that, but the coastal engineers have been looking at it ever since 2016, I think. That the coastal management plan that's actually in place has been looked at with everything, with the view of all of this. I know there is a new plan coming out, but my understanding is that because this has been going on for so long, we're actually under the current coastal protection plan. We just need something done. Our real worry is that another storm, and as you've seen lately, if I could show you pictures of our boat ramp, it's now floating. We have big boulders that have come in. We need something done.
And you can't get out there, can you?
We can't get onto the beach at the moment. We can't do anything. And the boat ramp will not be fixed till the wall is completed. So I don't know what else you want us to do. We can't protect people on the beach.
So during summer, the boat surf boat season.
Yep.
Where did the boys train and the girls train?
Still on the beach. They had to carry it down quite often over all of that. When the sand does come in, it did cover the boat ramp for quite a bit of that, but it was sort of towards the end of the season that we couldn't get anything on. We did get the trailer down one day. It stayed for a week. Couldn't get it off again. So it is a mess.
Yes,
Yeah. You probably don't know this, Alison, but I actually think I did nippers there with your son many years ago. So I know that area well, and it was good to go to provide some context to the councillors as well. I went to a community meeting at McMaster's Beach last Monday. Heard from the surf club, heard from the community association, obviously, and heard from the board riders as well, who seem to be crying out for some sort of solution. And I think it was good to hear some of the concerns they have with the consultation process, which I think you've already alluded to. But maybe as well, if you could just I think one issue that's been talked about in the community, which perhaps you can clarify on to provide some further context, would just be the concerns around the surf break, because obviously that was an original concern of the board riders, which has now largely subsided. And this measure, they're saying, or last week, they'd be more supportive of, or a smaller wall or something like that. So I think just explaining, maybe debunking a couple of those current community perceptions might be worthwhile.
Yeah, Jeremy Cohen from the representative from the Board Riders Association. I mean, absolutely, all of us would love nothing to be done. We'd like the natural environment to stay, all that sort of thing, but something has to be done because it is failing. The board riders, as I said before, we're all trying to protect our asset and we're coming at it from different points of view. So all being in the one room was really, really good because we could all speak together and hear each other. So the board riders, their concern was any wall will change the surf break. Some of the options that were proposed were an enormous concrete wall. Obviously, that would change the surf. A smaller concrete wall, that would too. The first one, I think, were boulders from memory, but the second option was the one that we unanimously agreed on, the big rock bags, because the waves come in, the water dissipates and it goes back out again. So nothing should change.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't have it.
Oh, you've got a question to the start.
Yes, I'd like to question to the staff, if
Yes.
that's okay.
If you can, Councillor Carson. Yeah.
You, Mr. Chairman. I note in the actual recommendation that we have on before us that talks about the project being deferred and an action being included in the open coastal management program, etc. Through you and to whichever staff member would be appropriate to answer this, what sort of time frame are we looking at for this open coastal management program to be completed?
Yeah, whoever wants to answer that.
Good question.
Yeah, I can pop up or do it from myself. It'd probably be in the order of years, I would think.
How long?
Years,
Okay.
not short term. So the time frame for the coastal management program is a 10-year action plan. I would have to check exactly when that proposed action, in terms of a short term, I think it's a 3 to 5 year period in terms of the short term actions in there. So yeah, it's certainly not a.
And just on from that too, is it correct, as I've been certainly trying to grapple with, and I think as our speaker mentioned, that the previous coastal management, I think they were then called zone plans, whatever, which I think was probably with the old Gosford City Council initially, or before the amalgamation. Do the actions that are in there still apply, even though I believe that that plan has sort of, in a sense, reached the end of its life, or has reached the end of its life?
They did reach the end of their life.
Yes, I thought so. So what does that mean in terms of, does that mean that's stop there with that one and we wait until this other one is complete? How does that actually work in terms of actions that can be, I guess, taken, or even actions that can be taken where you can possibly apply for certain amounts of funding if it's still able to be unlocked? I'm just a little bit uncertain how
I
that.
think there's a couple of different things at play there. So the Gosford Open Beaches Coastal Zone Management Plan is still an adopted CZMP of the council.
Right.
It's not certified by the state
No,
government.
that's right.
So the actions would still be endorsed by council. However, we may lose provisions through some planning pathways in legislation and funding opportunities through grants.
Okay.
At the moment, we're still in discussions with the grants unit from the state government, and they've indicated some
willingness.
Yeah, some capacity to still extend that grant. Mind you, when the new CMP is adopted, if this is an action within that, we would then be eligible.
Yes, sometimes we.
Since drafting the report, actually, one of the issues we do have is the planning pathway. because the approval pathway, as the speaker mentioned earlier, there was a previous proposal for a rock revetment up until about 2023, I believe, and was still whilst we had the certified CZMP in place, and there was an intention there to proceed to undertake these works under Part 5 through provisions that council can access where there's action within a certified coastal zone management plan. The recent legal advice we've had is that given the certification of the CZMP is no longer there, that we've lost that approval pathway for the time being.
Okay.
So we would, at the moment, probably if we wanted to seek that approval pathway, we wouldn't be able to use that until the new CMP is
I
certified.
see. That's what I was kind of wanting the clarification around. Okay. So how does that impact on this situation then with, as our speaker said, about the rock bags and things like that? Is there an implication here in terms of that?
Well, the issue is we don't have appropriate consents
Right.
in accordance with the Environmental Planning and Assessment
Okay.
Act at this time.
So therefore it would be extremely, could be a
We would need to,
big challenge to be able to actually even do this work. Is that what we're saying?
well, we would need to seek the appropriate consents prior to
Okay.
commencement of the works as with the rock bag proposal, which was discussed.
Sorry, can I just clarify?
Yeah.
Sorry, are you talking about the bags or are you talking about a structure? Are you talking
The
about
rock bags.
the rock bags? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So can I
Yeah,
just
go on.
ask, can
Yeah.
staff just talk to the recommendation that's
Yes.
here? So the current budget for the rock bags, if we're, that capital works item, what's the current budget?
I think it's in the order of 500 to 600,000.
Right, okay. And the alternative, or what staff are recommending, is that we withdraw that and instead look at a risk assessment and options in the coastal management program. Is there any reason why we couldn't commence that work now, or is it dependent on being in that the coastal management program in order to comply or be eligible for funding? But is there any reason why we couldn't commence that risk assessment and the other options work?
No, other than what you just mentioned in terms of the eligibility for funding under the Coast and Estuary Grant Program.
Okay, so that wouldn't preclude us from then accessing funding if we commence the work and then it's included in the coastal management program?
In terms of the investigations or the works?
Well, I guess what I'm wondering if, to hear that if it was in the coastal management program, it could be sometime over the next 10 years, probably wouldn't be very encouraging for the residents. But if we thought that there was, well, one would presume you want to do a risk assessment anyway and look at design options.
Are you suggesting, councillor, the option of commencing that options assessment
Yeah,
prior to the certification of the CMP?
yes.
And would we have eligibility to apply for funding after the commencement of the project?
Yeah, and I don't know what the options work would lead to. I mean, it is options. It's not just one answer. But it seems to be, doesn't there need to be some work? Like, have we got a good grasp on the whole coastal issues there and the solution?
The reason for that action, and the action would probably still be put up as part of the draft CMP anyway, is that it's bigger than the surf club, I guess, is the risk.
Which is my point as well.
To Marine Parade and
Yeah.
and other access ways and things like that as well. So it is a whole of employment, sort of whole of beach issue in terms of that risk. So that will happen regardless, I guess.
Okay.
For Marine Parade, we're usually precluded from claiming or being paid funds out of the grant program if we've already commenced. Generally,
Right.
one of the requisites is that we don't commence until that work has been approved and the work plan has been approved. That's the investigation. Usually, there's a planning grant and an implementation grant as well,
Right.
under separate planning grant streams.
Right. Call a question to the staff? Yes?
Yes, thank you. Could I just ask about timeframe, given that the CMP is, not that far away? How could that affect the timeframe in terms of what the community who've been represented here tonight are asking? And then also in relation to the staff recommendation.
So yeah, the draft coastal management program is planned to come to the next environment planning committee meeting in
Yes.
June. Within that is a number of draft actions. Those actions would then be put out on exhibition for the community to have their say on, and that stuff. And the council could take that on board.
Okay. So that's not exactly a timeframe, but
And then a certified plan by the issued for certification by the end of this year is the plan. And then once certification happens, then the projects would be eligible for grant funding.
There would, of course, there's obviously uncertainties in that timeframe because there's reliance on what happens at the state level once council's endorsed it certification. Indeed, there might be uncertainties at the council level before it gets adopted to recommend to the Minister for certification. If those timeframes came to be and we obtained certification in December, I guess looking at two different options. One effectively where council elects not to continue with a temporary rock bag structure, and therefore we'd be doing an options analysis. I guess that's a project which we'd potentially be looking at, resume in 2026. That's just for the report, not works on the ground necessarily at that time. If council elected for us to continue with a temporary rock bag protection solution for McMaster's Beach, and we had the gazettal of that CMP in December, we would presume that following that gazettal then, we would be able to resecure approval under Part 5 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, with a view to delivery of those works post the patrol season, which would be after Anzac Day.
okay, and we'd also be eligible to apply for funding.
Yeah, if we weren't already holding onto the existing funding.
If the current grant wasn't extended to cover that period.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I think you just touched on my other question. So this recommendation is that we've got 600,000 of our money in the capital works budget, but that's matching a grant. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's.
Or part of complementing a grant. So this recommendation would be.
The project is 600,000. So
Right, okay.
50, yeah.
Okay, so if we proceeded with deferring that, we'd be giving that grant back, is that, or closing off that grant?
Yeah, if we were deferring and not proceeding to construction, yeah, we would advise the grants.
Is there a time frame on the completion of that grant? What's the time frame on that?
It's currently only been extended to end of July this year, but they are willing to talk. If a decision is made to proceed to construction, they're willing to look at extending that to cover the construction period.
Can I ask a question?
Before you do, I might just clarify the timeframes in the CZMP. What do you think is the likelihood of having it gazetted by December, given your experience with these matters? Which I would suggest it's not very likely at all. But I'm happy to be corrected.
Issued for certification, I would say by December this year, but the process and the experience of other councils of having that certified and advice back from the minister that it's certified can be 6 months, can be longer.
Sorry, Councillor Wright.
It's all good. So is the ultimate decision for council to put forward a recommendation for deferral based largely in majority off the survey?
Survey and also that there's other areas of the beach that are at risk, and that given that we'll be doing studies on the risk to marine parade and beach access ways and, essentially the future, I guess, of the beach longer term, that it could be wrapped into that, if we could defer it.
I don't correct staff, but the executive summary just focuses on the survey results that 58% of respondents didn't want it. There's no reference in the executive summary to any other matters.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, what was that?
In the executive summary, page 69.
61, yep.
The recommendations seem to be purely based that 58% of respondents, 159 people did not support the proposed temporary coastal protection works. 34%, 95 respondents support the works, and then there was still 21 respondents that were unsure. And if the Surf Club is now alluding that the actual survey process may not be as robust as it could have been, I think that's probably the biggest point for me in considering this matter based on that executive summary.
I think as well, it sounds like if that,
Hang on, we don't want to go into debate until we've got a motion.
sorry.
And
One-
you've got your-
One more
question, yes, councillor Wright.
So if all this, if we go through this more planning process and not the deferral, we're still going to have another summer. By the time we get the CMP back, it goes out for certification, where one of our surf clubs can't get the, I don't know what the technical term is, but the rubber ducky out, to rescue someone.
We need to clarify related to that is that the rock bag wall is between the rock pool and the ramp. It doesn't actually include protection of the ramp or any upgrade of the ramp itself. So it won't change the ramp.
Get rid of some, because you said there was rocks blocking it, is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I know I'm creating a bit of an open dialogue, but I just want to clarify.
We're clarifying that.
I was informed the boat ramp wasn't going to be fixed until the wall was completed.
Which makes sense.
So the temporary works, sorry, one last question. The temporary works still won't assist with the boat ramp being operational for next season?
No, but it's the puzzle piece that we need for then the boat ramp to be fixed.
Even the temporary works will allow for that?
The rock bags, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone's calling it temporary, but it can last for 20 years.
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah, yeah.
on the agenda.
Yeah.
As a term, but yeah, thank you.
Although that also is dependent on what we see with sand accretion and erosion at the beach over that 12-month cycle, because it does come and go, it can be unpredictable.
All right, well, I think we're ready to move to a motion. I did ask the acting director to also draft an alternate recommendation to proceed with the current work. So it's up to the committee as to which way you want to go.
Put it up there.
Is that the ultimate one?
Yeah, put it up, yep. Assume somebody's got it. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I assumed you would have sent it to somebody else as well. Well, while it's happening, I can read it out. As I said, this is worded, don't want to put words in a mouth, but it's worded up at my request by the acting director. And it's 1, notes the results of the community consultation. 2, request staff including an action. Request staff include an action in the draft open coastal management program for the construction of the temporary coastal protection works as designed. 3, recommends that council include the project in council's capital work program for 25-26 and adjust council's current project budget for 24-25. And 4, notes that subject to council resolution of item 3 above, that staff will advise the New South Wales Coastal and Estuary Grants Branch that the project will proceed to construction and seek an extension to the grant completion date.
These comfies.
We've got an excellent, screenshot now.
Only coming up there, I didn't hear any numbers associated with the capital works for 25-26.
That's all in the report. We may be able. Have we got a printer here or not?
Yeah.
I'm do.
Can I just ask
So-
Chair of the staff, is there any reason we couldn't also still keep 2, which is endorse the project not being deferred, but endorse an action being included in the Open Coastal Management Program? Because there's a longer term piece of work that needs to be done.
That was for the options analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be subject to funding.
That makes sense.
Happy to hear from the staff, but I don't see a problem with that.
And how would that look? Sorry, Jan.
So the option 2 that is in the staff recommendation, instead of endorsing the project being deferred, it would just endorse an action being included in the Open
Take out,
Coastal.
yes, take out the
Open
words,
Coastal Management.
take out the words, the project being deferred and.
I would assume the timeframe on that might be pushed back a little bit because of the temporary works, but I think that would be reasonable. With that.
Is that in there yet, Jane, what you just said, or?
It's
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Okay.
But it is a project.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Copy point 2 from the original motion.
But
There's a couple of words changed.
Take out the project.
Oh, I see.
Let's start with endorse an action.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's fine too.
People read that, or I must admit I'm struggling, so we could try and get it printed and passed around if you like.
Blow it up.
Yeah.
So just number 5, delete the project being deferred.
Yes.
And.
Endorses an action.
Yep, correct. So, does somebody want to move that?
So just for clarity, Chair, can we make sure that we're recommending that the committee recommend to council?
Yeah.
That council knows.
Yes, I'm happy with that. Do I have a move for that?
Be a member.
Oh,
Has to be a-
that it's going to back to council. I'll second that.
All right, moved by councillor Smith, seconded by councillor Carstens. Now, is there any discussion, debate? I think we kind of answered it through the questions. So if there's no debate, yes?
I just say realise Cole did dial in.
Yes.
Start, so as long as you know he's there.
I saw he was there, yes. I could hardly miss him. Committee recommends to council, isn't that the words? All right, well, if everyone's happy, I will put that, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? That carried unanimously. Obviously, if we get to a mixed vote, I'll put up.
Councillor McGregor's on mute, so I don't know if you heard anything. You're asking for a verbal.
No, well, okay, so we now go back to so I'll just explain to Alison and the Surf Club and the other people. So effectively what happens is that recommendation goes to the council meeting at the end of the month. And then it's up to the council whether they accept that recommendation or not. Given what might be decided as people who don't always agree, agreeing tonight, I think you're fairly safe that that will go through the council. And it is basically to continue with the process that we've been on.
Thank you.
So if you people would, you're welcome to stay and enjoy the show, but if you go.
It doesn't get more excited.
Excuse me.
Yes. Sorry, councillor Walsh.
Actually didn't vote for it.
Oh, okay, all right, well, that's fine. Well, sorry, we'll go back and recommit it. So all those in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, councillor Stanton, councillor Eaton, councillor Smith, councillor Moreland and councillor Castles against councillor Walsh. I'll declare the motion carried. Apologise for that. Okay, so we go back to the beginning, and as I said, Given that we're already 7:40, I'm proposing that we adopt the exception method. I probably need a procedural motion, so I'll move that we adopt the exception method of dealing with the business paper. Is there a seconder for that? Oh, sorry, it doesn't need a second actually. Is there any opposition to that? I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Any against?
Including.
No,
That's
it's just we're going there.
Okay.
Look, you can still pick everything if you want to. I'm just trying to fast track things a little. So I'll put that again. All those in favour say aye. Raise your hand. Any against? Declare that carried unanimously. Okay, so now councillors, pick out the ones you want to talk about.
The CMP is there somewhere.
Yes.
Pick that in.
Yeah, that's 1.13.
1.3, probably like staff to talk.
Yes.
Mr McGregor's got his hand up, Chair.
Yes, councillor McGregor.
Look, I'd be interested in hearing about the thematic, the Arimba and the contribution plans. So I'd be keen to hear the staff comments on that.
Contribution plans 1.11,
1.5.
1.5, and 1.6. I do notice that there are some people here from Arimba, so they probably want to hear about 1.6 too.
Do you want to move that up?
I don't think it'll take too long, but I'm up. Yes, if that's the view of the committee, I'm happy to do that. But hang on, we can, but can we finish picking out what you want to talk about first?
So we've got 1.3, 1.5, 1.6, 1.11, 1.13.
Yes, that's what I've got.
Anything else?
Any others? All right.
Shall I withdraw the Thomas Peoples one? Will that come to council anyway? Yes. Okay, I'll deal with it then.
Good.
Is
All right.
1.8 included in that list?
Another
Yeah.
stage if you want it.
That would be good, I think.
Okay. Any others? Somebody please move the balance of the paper. Moved by councillor Stanton, seconded by councillor Merlin. Anyone, any opposition? Put that. All those in favour?
Sorry, I withdrew 1.3 from
You did.
the
You did.
Staff didn't get
Yes,
that.
yes. I'll put that again. All those in favour of the balance? Unanimous. Councillor Smith? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, so do we want to bring forward Arimba? Thank you. Procedure motion by councillor Stanton to bring forward 1.6. Any opposition to that? I'll put it. All those in favour?
So you're bringing it
We're
forward?
just bringing it forward.
Okay, yeah,
You okay with that, ladies?
that's fine.
Carried unanimously. All right. So we're on to the Arimba Master Plan, Jacks Street. And the resolution is there, but questions? I think was it councillor McGregor who wanted to ask questions?
First.
I just wasn't sure if staff were going to talk to it first. Is there someone who's going to talk to the
Presentation.
recommendation?
Yes,
All right.
love a presentation.
No, presentation.
Anybody else got any presentations that you feel you're missing out on?
So Deanne Frankel is our section manager of strategic planning projects. She was given.
Go.
It's not up.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm ready.
While they're bringing that up, I can start into it. So our team has been responsible for the preparation of a master plan and a public domain plan for 1A Jacques Street, Arimba. So as some background, the site is approximately 1,100 square metres, and it's been a significant place for the Ourimbah residents. Locations for dance halls, picture theatres and School of Arts. It formerly housed a World War II hangar. It was actually transported to the site in the 1950s. The site is heritage listed, and the New South Wales government bought it in the 1990s and transferred it to the University of Newcastle. It was initially used for teaching, but it lay vacant for a period of time, and the uni dismantled it with approval and removed the hut from the land in 2023. The land does accommodate public toilets, and these have been managed and remain being managed by council and are still in use. In July 23, council resolved to negotiate and finalise and execute a transfer of land to council. The land to be classified as community land, and for community consultation to be undertaken and a heritage interpretation strategy to be undertaken to inform the amendments to the adopted Ourimbah land use strategy and master plan as it relates specifically to that site. The land was formally transferred to council on the 15th of November in 2023, and council engaged Atlas Urban, who partnered with Loki Design Collective to prepare that master plan. So engagement has been a significant component of this project. In September 23, a key stakeholder session was undertaken. Attendees included members of the Ourimbah Residents Association, a local student, representatives from David Meehan's office, and a visit to local shop owners. Between 25th of September and the 30th of October, there was broader public consultation that was undertaken on our Your Voice, Our Coast website. And that included an overview of the project, site analysis, an ideas page, and an 11-question survey. There were 66 responses received through that process. And in addition to that, on the 13th of October, we held a pop-up event on site between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. There were approximately 70 attendees at that pop-up event. We've also sought to receive and engage with cultural input from Darkinjung Local Aboriginal Land Council, Ringai and Inul as well. Internally, we've consulted with numerous relevant sections of council to make sure there's all matters addressed and raised by council units and being addressed in the development of the master plan. So to give an overview of the key feedback that was received from the community, generally there was consensus that the site is an ideal location for a small park for the community, for others to gather, particularly given its close proximity to the local shops and its segregation from the highway. They see it as an informal park with upgraded amenities, a shade structure and seating, and enhanced vegetation, improved parking. And they wanted to see it incorporating the rich heritage of Ourimbah, including both the Indigenous and European heritage, and that was incorporated into any design of the site. So council consultants looked at that engagement, also did a site analysis to guide the design brief and develop the master plan for the site. So the proposal includes a community park with garden areas, bench seating, planted mounds to help provide privacy to the adjoining business, grass areas for informal play. There's a covered pavilion area with seating to allow the community to gather and have picnics. Community focus area with some gathering space, public amenities building, and interpretation of European and Indigenous heritage. So our recommendations to the committee are for a resolution to place the draft master plan on exhibition for a minimum of 28 days, and to notify all those people that have made submissions during the initial consultation of that exhibition. And it's important to highlight as well that there's preliminary costings for the proposal in the order of 1.445 million.
Okay, questions?
Just a clarification on costings and funding. it alludes that there's funding there for the construction, the ongoing maintenance. Is that right? Or-
Yeah, so there's potential opportunities from contributions between the heritage, so there are potential sources.
Okay, other questions? Councillor McGregor?
Thank you. Look, I was reading through some of the documents for this earlier this afternoon, and I noticed in the one of the attachments there was talk about not following through with a community facility in Arimba that would cost roughly $2 million. I'm just wondering if the funds that were not being spent on that, if they would be applicable to be used for this project.
Sorry, I might just need some clarification on that.
Yeah, so the, one of the recommendations of the review of the Section 712 contribution plan also includes the repeal of the Arimba contribution plan. It's quite old, and the rolling of the funds that are currently sitting in the contribution plan, we moved into the 712 plan, which makes the spending on other projects such as things like this much easier. Would that-
So it could be used for this. Is that what you're saying?
That's a yes? Yes.
That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Otherwise, the recommendation is there.
Very briefly,
Not really, but yes, quickly.
just that this has been ongoing for quite a while, and in the recommendations, it's saying allocation of budget in the 2026-27 period for preparation of a detailed design, ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And yet in the recommendation, it's saying is to go on exhibition for a period of not less than 28 days. I'd like to see if that, I don't know when that 28 days would begin when you started, but I'd like to ask if that could be possibly extended given the lengthy period of time of everything, that's all. Because I'm
Probably doesn't, it's given the timeframes, we're not going to make any difference. So.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting, 42 days?
Yeah.
Which is not less than, mate.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, that's what I mean. I'd like to be not less than to be.
All right, recommendations there. If we can change that, if somebody wants to change it.
I'm happy.
Moving that, councillor Castles,
Move that we
to the
change
42 days.
to 42 days for the exhibition.
Seconder. Councillor Smith. Any discussion? No discussion, I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Now we go back to 1.5, I think, don't we? Yeah.
Say, in what's on paper here, fantastic.
Good.
Very, very, very happy. Thank you.
Exciting.
Thank you. Okay, so 1.5, the thematic history. Again, I assume we've got a little bit of a slideshow or something.
We've just realised I don't think it.
Thematic history. We've got thematic history.
We've got thematic. And you have Burns Place as well.
And sorry.
Burns Place.
Oh,
We didn't call Burns Place.
Oh.
It's already been passed. So if you're here for Burns Place, subject to what the bosses say, you probably don't stay. It was such a great report that we, it was all encompassing.
So. Doing the
You want this one anymore? Do you want?
No, we were.
It's probably at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Just got to scroll through, I imagine.
We're getting there.
You're
Oh,
okay.
okay, right.
And we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So here to talk to you today about the Central Coast thematic history. So as some background, in 2022, April of 2020, Council adopted a document called the Central Coast Heritage Gap Analysis. So that document provided a lot of actions and recommendations, which included the preparation of the Central Coast thematic history for the LGA as a priority action. And thematic histories are actually acknowledged by and supported by New South Wales Heritage as being best practice in regards to heritage management. So prior to the merger, both Gosford and Wyong Council both had their own thematic history. And what this seeks to do is actually integrate those two previous history, revise them, update them into a contemporary document to ensure that the themes are relevant and accurate. So staff engaged GML Heritage to prepare the Central Coast thematic history. And the key scope of that, the project has been to provide a detailed thematic history for the whole LGA, to review and revise the history of First Nations people, broadly reflecting the course and pattern of Aboriginal occupation, land management and European contact, to address the impact of post-war and modern development, include the history and the themes relevant up to including the current day, explain the main factors that have influenced the history and the heritage of the Central Coast and show its distinctive character, and make sure the document that's produced is engaging and contemporary and useful. So thematic history. So this is a specific method of actually researching and writing history, and it's really useful for heritage management. So what it does is provides a broad historical context for understanding patterns and forces that have shaped an area over time. So the New South Wales, Heritage New South Wales have actually developed 36 themes, which are used as a basis. But then local government, and when you're developing the thematic history, you identify the locally distinctive themes that structure your narrative. So those themes, they unite all the actions, all the events, the functions and the people and the dates. It helps to prevent an over and emphasis on a particular type of heritage item, a period or an event, an area's history and heritage. So it's a balanced approach to looking at how an area has evolved. And it really helps readers understand and appreciate how the Central Coast has evolved into the shape that it is today. One of the key things, and this came out in consultation too, is a thematic history is never intended to actually be a detailed account of all the historical aspects of the history of the area. It's a high-level, broad history, and it doesn't focus on the specific subjects. That can be done through other supporting documents that are developed. But what it does do is it's a tool. It's a planning and it's a management tool that helps inform things such as our heritage listings, our heritage interpretation that we apply across the LGA, public education, and how we as the Central Coast decide to celebrate our history. So this document has been placed on exhibition. So council endorsed the recommendation in November 2023, and it was exhibited for a period of time from the 11th of December and to the 11th of February. Because it did extend over that Christmas period, we got an extension to compensate for that Christmas period. So we had that extended period. 24 submissions were received. 4 of those were through Your Voice Out Coast and 19 detailed submissions were received directly. So as an overview of the type and nature of the comments that we received, typographical, grammatical, date, image formatting. So those sort of comments, some clarification on the purpose and the objectives of the thematic history and how it's used by council. So we incorporated amendments to make the document more user-friendly. There were requests across particular themes for some additional inclusions and or additional commentary on themes and items. And in some instances, we did make those changes. Some we didn't. And it was about getting that balance, as I mentioned, a consistent approach across the numerous themes, not focusing on one or the other. There were comments received that the draft version had some imbalances between the former Gosford and the former Wyong LGA areas. So additional commentary was provided, particularly for the Wyong LGA, to get a more balanced approach. There was some requests for additional information on Aboriginal heritage, so that so additional information was provided. But I also note that a recommendation of the report is to prepare in the future a Aboriginal cultural assessment. So that is where the detail provided. The purpose of this document is broad, a broad overview of the history. And there was some feedback about the stakeholder engagement. And as some background, we engaged some consultants to do some stakeholder engagement. Key stakeholders, they didn't go far enough. So our staff went out and did supplementary consultation with those stakeholders to make sure we did effectively communicate and get feedback.
Can I just ask you a quick question on that in terms of the consultants? So you said that, I was just wondering, obviously not in detail, otherwise we'd probably be here all night, but what sort of brief were they given that you've actually are now finding clearly it wasn't, well, it wasn't adequate one way or another, what they did wasn't adequate?
No, and so they had to undertake stakeholder engagement.
Yeah.
So what the evidence they provided is they sent emails to certain people, they made a phone call and those people didn't respond. Our expectations, would you make multiple efforts and you do follow-ups? And we had some discussions with them, but we want to make sure it was done well. So kudos to the staff who went out and did that detailed engagement. We're a big believer in doing post-project evaluation, and we've given some feedback to the consultant of that. Did not achieve our
That is because I guess with that, it's one of those issues where, it can really trip you over if you're not sort of actually really mindful of the fact that, hang on, this is not what we need. And can I ask on that theme, what sort of money did we pay for it if they were so basically hopeless?
Look, what I would say is, look, generally, I'd have to be honest, clarify the.
No, that's fine, and it can be I don't want just do something.
Look, generally, the comments and the thematic history was sound, and they were very, took on and did commented on it, but there was definitely a gap in the stakeholder engagement. And I think some of that really comes down to our expectations, our and the nature of our work. Stakeholder engagement, internal and external, is absolutely critical to making sure we're covering all issues. Sometimes you don't make the popular decision, but it's about having the information, understanding and interrogating that to see if you make the changes, if not, why not, and being able to justify that. And that's why we're producing things like the closing the loop statement. So we've got a clear and transparent what we heard and how we responded. So it's a very critical nature of the projects, and we are taking a very project management approach to always be getting the best expectations where we're not delivering, looking at the improvement opportunities and actually implementing them immediately, not waiting until after post project, and also providing that feedback on how things can be done better in the future.
So can I ask how were the consultants chosen?
There was
part of our normal tender.
Procurement process.
Just a regular sort of process.
So in that process, those who tendered, did they provide an outline of the methodology that they would use?
Absolutely.
So in the consultants who were chosen and their methodology didn't describe stakeholder?
It was at a very high level. I think. So I've been with council for 2 years. I think there's an opportunity with a lot of our projects actually to be getting and bring an onus on our consultants to actually also, as part of their scope, to be asking for basically a stakeholder engagement plan upfront in preparation, so that we can review that and critique that and provide feedback before you actually implement.
That makes sense.
I think I have to say too, with these consultants, they actually did. I think they consulted very well with some sections, and then some sections where they didn't get a response from them, they were less good at.
Sure.
So it was like there were some groups that they actually did
not over consult, but did really thorough consultation with
The
someone.
easy ones, possibly.
I don't know about that, but it wasn't a blanket,
So I think, sorry, I guess based on their previous experience, and I don't know what they presented to you or what they tendered to you, but I'm wondering why that might have not been apparent. Do you know what I mean? Like their methodology should have actually been addressing that if they did have these groups that they didn't kind of engage in so well, then why? And what are the options to do that? So, yeah.
And I think it's an opportunity for us to, in our exception meetings to manage our expectations when you're providing the feedback. So yes, they identified who they would engage with, but there wasn't, they didn't say if we don't contact them, we're going to go back to
Sure.
times. And if they've got a stakeholder engagement or a consultation plan, they can be addressing that.
Sorry, just
No,
going
that's-
to 25 minutes.
Yeah, just really quickly, so 24 responses total.
Not many.
Can you just go back to that slide before?
Yeah, it was 24 for 19
19
detailed and 4 submissions.
I suppose I'm a little bit concerned adopting a regional strategy for 350,000 people. How do we justify to the community? Is it better to go out again and spend some additional money? I'm just scared if we go out with those type of figures, maybe more people than 19 would come out saying we don't accept this, and then houses in this continuous sleep cycle.
Could I ask a question about the engagement then, and if it's just 24 responses? That's engagement with people, but what about let's call it engagement with the already written histories? For example, all the Stinson documents that are and volumes that are out there about Wyong. How was other sources moved into this document?
Yeah, so they reviewed the previous documents that obviously been developed following exhibition and consultation as well, and other literature review. Lots of, whilst these are the submission, there was engagement with other key stakeholders. So yes, those reviews were done with those previous documents.
Can you confirm that from the Wyong extra information that needed to be done, was the Stinson documents discussed or included or not?
I
Are you looking at?
the team, the actual people that did the work. So,
I can't tell you for sure, but we'll check, but I'm pretty sure that Stinson's a very well-known document. There are actually problems with the Stinson documents as well, so they're referred to as a resource, double checked again, because there's, like all history, so someone in this on right.
Back in the day, it was the history, right?
Yeah, that's right, but
Okay.
but they use a lot of resources, and the thematic history is not necessarily there to use new research. It's really like a literature review and try to bring that on.
And if you look at the end of each theme, there's literally pages
of references. It's a huge amount. And I think just why only 24 people responded. It's not even like when we do a heritage report, which huge amount of people respond to. This is a very specific area of interest, really, the history. And it's not even like a detailed history where you get all the juicy stuff. It's there to give us things. So it's really a strategic planning document.
Yes.
Doesn't have the broad appeal necessarily, but it is vital to what we do in the heritage.
Okay, I'm not all against the document. I'm glad you got the presentation because I learned a lot.
Okay, so we move on. Have we got a recommendation there?
Chair, can we just just pause for a minute, because I think this is a great document and all of that, but it does raise in my mind how, as a council, are we going to go forward with heritage as such? Because we're cutting off discussion. So if heritage is the sole sole focus held within this committee, then we're not really going to deal with it very much. So I would like to see some further recommendation regarding how, as a council, we're going to consider heritage. And I'm not necessarily suggesting a heritage advisory committee, because I don't always think that's predictive, but I would like to see something where there is an opportunity for interested councillors, interested community people to look at council's current level of activity around heritage and where we want to go next. So can I include that in a recommendation on this item? Now, I haven't got words in my head yet.
Can I suggest, Councillor Smith?
Yep.
You could put it as an agenda item to the next committee meeting.
Well, no,
Really
we're not going to
related
just
this
keep
item.
deferring everything to the next committee meeting and then to the next council meeting.
Otherwise, I'll rule it out of order because it's not really related to this particular item.
Exactly, but what I may suggest is that at the council meeting that these comes to.
Okay, well, I might talk to
Might be
a
a
few
little
of
bit
you
more
and we
open.
might add it on to a
I'm not trying to be
recommendation.
deliberately difficult, believe it or not.
Yes.
Don't believe it, but thank you. But well, just flagging that, and I would be interested if there is any staff that I could appropriately talk to about what might be a good thing to progress.
And I support
Yeah, because I actually
that.
think that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I support it too, and I think that could be really helpful to staff.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
And I go on it too.
Yeah, and Jane, so I've got the heritage officers in my team, so we're doing a lot of work in this space.
That's great.
That's great.
I'm not suggesting another, long-term committee. It might be a short-term thing, but.
All right, so the recommendation's there. You know? Move the recommendation.
Well, no, I don't know, I'll support next week, not with 20, no, I'm not gonna move it. So, sort of smooth.
Where is it? Wait to come
Hang
to.
on, we lost it again.
The recommendation is
On page 22.
it goes to council for.
Endorses the adoption, endorses publishing, steps, supervises. Following.
Just a recommendation.
No council meeting.
I'll move it. Is there a second? Oh, there we go. Second by Councillor Smith. Any further discussion? All right, I'll put it all those in favour. Councillor Stanton, Councillor Eaton, Councillor Smith, Councillor Castles, Councillor Welsh, against Councillor Millet.
I'm saying.
That's against.
Against.
You're a mistake,
I declare it.
in general.
I declare it carried. Okay, so now we go to 1.8, the update on the biodiversity strategy.
First,
Page 44.
I'm just aware of time. I've got a really brief presentation for.
Okay, yeah, very brief, good.
You are favourite staff member.
Okay, we've got 20 minutes left to do 3 items.
So the biodiversity strategy was adopted in September 2020 to guide council's protection and enhancement of biodiversity across the LGA. We has a number of roles in biodiversity management, including land use planning and land management itself for biodiversity. The biodiversity strategy had 5 themes, 53 actions, and there was in their delivery program, there's an item, a KPI to report to council at the end of the 4-year period, which is where we are at the moment. So in that time, and bearing in mind what happened in 2020, we've achieved 80% of those actions throughout that period. We've got 27 bushland reserves that have got formal legal conservation protection. And I suppose they're sort of some of the headline things. We've got the conservation management team that's delivering on reserve management plans. We've brought in 152 hectares of new land into the reserve system. We've got the environmental education activities, and we've brought in a substantial amount of grant funding through the Biodiversity Stewardship Agreement program. Our land management for the natural areas includes weed control, unauthorised activities, including encroachments, pest animal control, and another big one that we haven't got in this slide here is community engagement through the environmental volunteer program. We've got 80 groups in that program, and approximately 650 volunteers that work with council to protect and manage biodiversity on our systems. And I guess the biodiversity strategy doesn't sit in isolation. We've got the strategy for nature at a national level, and we've got the biodiversity framework, global biodiversity framework that is a United Nations framework that identifies local, state, and national governments as having particular roles in the management of biodiversity. And that's just this diagram there just sort of shows how our actions fit in with those few documents at a national and international level. So that's my brief presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question about how our biodiversity lands link in with what the RFS does, for example, on burnbacks, etc. And do you interact with them on, you know, where they've got to do it or where you want them to do it?
Yeah, definitely within our unit is the bushfire management group, and that's represented on the bushfire management committee, where there are particular burns proposed for some of our natural reserves. We engage in that process and discuss through our representative on the committee or with with the RFS more directly.
Just when I was on the bushfire one now, I was with the RFS and the guys 2 weeks ago, and they seem to be all new around the table too, by the way. But I didn't hear anything, you know, along those lines. I think they had some plans for, you know, backburns, etc. But I just want to know, just making sure that we're feeding into that.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess from the biodiversity management point of view, there's the ecological burns that aim to restore their kind of, you know, the natural, for want of a better term, burning regimes, as well as that risk management approach through the hazard reduction burns.
All right, any other questions? Recommendations there, just to note the report. Moved. Councillor Walsh, was it? Yep, she's nodding. Okay, seconded Councillor Smith. Put that, all those in favour. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We're up to 111, review of the contribution plans, page 68.
We'll just want to jump straight in to questions on this one. Give it plenty of time.
Yep. Any questions? Not sure who asked for this. Councillor McGregor. Do you have a question? You asked for this one?
Yeah, look, I get that we're running out of time. So, I mean, I would be happy for this to be deferred for a bit more of a broader look at later on, if we're not going to have enough time. But if it needs to be done tonight, then we can go through it now.
Yeah, the amendments in this policy support our operational plan. So some of the funding coming for some of the projects in Council's 25-26 operational plan will come from this.
So what necessitated the changes? What if you could just provide a bit of information on that?
Yeah, it's we do review the Section 7.12 plan annually to ensure that it matches the operational plan, but it's twofold. So we've also been going through trying to reduce the number of contribution plans that we have. So at amalgamation, we had about 54, and we've been slowly chipping away at the review of those. And there's two types of contributions. So Section 711, which you often hear the old Section 94, sometimes it gets called to, is we tend to use it in our greenfield areas. It's pretty specific in that when you collect contributions, you're quite regulated in what they're spent on and how they're spent. And the issue with that is it creates a lot of small buckets of money. That makes the spending of money hard. With Section 712 contributions, it's just one big bucket. So if we are levying development in one suburb, we can spend it in another if we wanted to, or we can pool all our funds and we can spend it on our priority projects. So the part of this is where we're proposing to repeal some more contribution plans, and the funds collected under those plans will also move into our 712 plan, which then allows for the ease and greater spending of our contributions on priority infrastructure that's outlined each year. The reason we review it each year is that in the schedule of works, we apply it to a lot of, I guess, programs of work, so the delivery of our cycleway strategy or upgrades of our parks and reserves, rather than specific projects that we haven't got listed in the plan, rather than that we kind of attach it to the operational plan, and the plans listed in the operational plan, part of their funding each year comes from the 712 plan. So we generally just have a bit of a look every year to make sure it aligns. And because we've gone into a new cycle, we've got a new delivery plan, we've just included the 4 years in the 712 plan to match what's in the delivery plan to ensure that we can actually fund those projects. But it will be updated every year if we need to, if things change.
All right. Well, look, I really appreciate that information. That certainly explains where you're coming from with this. My concern is that even though we're a region of 350,000 people, there's lots of little villages and town centres and things. And there's a very big and I believe genuine concern in our community around infrastructure provision. And I know that there's arguments that the contributions are too low. There's been discussion of that before. And my concern is constantly removing these localised plans and just having one big bucket of money. I understand that's the intent, to be able to spend money in other suburbs, but it's going to mean that some of these smaller little villages and parts of the coast are going to miss out to the areas that are more focused on tourism or economic development. So essentially you're going to see money going to already more established suburbs. That was my concern with it.
Right. Yeah, further to Councillor McGregor's comment, on page 70, when we look at distribution of 712 funding, there seems a lot of Gosford spending. Gosford Regional Library, I know that has been established for a long time. Then Gosford City Centre, open space and public domain, transport and access management works, implementation of Cloud and Janey studies. It's becoming increasingly difficult for a number of councillors to say there's other regions on the coast getting their fair share. And to Councillor McGregor's point, that report goes up in its current state. I would like some wording from staff saying, is that a fair distribution right across our region based on the money collected, especially in these greenfield sites that are being built from Wyong North?
It's just one plan though, so we still have, at the moment, we've still got 14 plans, so we still have a plan for the Greater Port Vale. There's a plan for the Greater Lake Marlborough. There's a plan, Remo plan, a budget week. Oh, it's proposed. It will go, but yeah, there's like a Gorican, Tookley. There still is a significant amount of.
Can we ask the comms team then maybe provide some wording? I think a lot of people will go to that page and go, once again, Gosford's got the majority of the funding in other areas, but whole region has missed out, including the Forgotten North. I know I talk about it all the time. I know there's a few people waiting for me to say it tonight, but yeah, there is a feeling that a lot of the spending previously and currently is all happening down south. So.
Ask a question. And look, I'll confess I haven't read the attachment in great detail. So I am wondering if it's worthwhile, and I'm not going to recommend it now, I'll read it first, whether there needs to be a briefing of the full councillors, because it's quite, with a lot of new councillors getting their head around it, I think there may be a need. That's my first question, or first point. The second thing, can I just check, the ones that you're appealing aren't the tourism levies, are they? No. No, okay, all right. So that's nothing to do with any of these, yep, okay, all right.
But yeah, no, we can definitely provide a briefing to them.
Well, I just wonder if that would be useful, because it's changed over recent years, and now we're looking at sort of some things. And yes, it's going to go out on exhibition, but I think it would be good if councillors were confident with what we were putting out on exhibition, rather than just waving it through.
I suggest a workshop rather than a briefing.
Yeah, workshop.
Information that doesn't want to be in a briefing.
Yeah.
A workshop would be, calling it a workshop would be better.
You want to add that as 6?
Add that. We should add that.
You can add that as 6 if you want to. That
well,
the committee recommends a workshop be held on the contribution plans.
for all councillors.
Well, before we endorse and repeal it, shouldn't we have the workshop?
Well, I think the problem is that it's fairly time critical in terms of the budget. There's plans.
Okay,
stuff
all
that-
right, yep, fair enough, because we can change it after exhibition. We can,
True,
yeah,
true.
we could whites out on exhibition, at a workshop.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine about submissions and.
All right, somebody want to move that then? Thank you, Councillor Millen. Second to Councillor Walsh. See you, Nelly. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Unanimous. All right, last item for the night. It's probably the most contentious one. There's one, most people are interested in, I suspect, maybe coastal management programs, 113, page 71.
I have a couple.
Someone to talk to this, or we do?
Should extend. Hold on,
Should be a brief presentation about this.
Yep,
Questions.
yeah, keep going.
keep going.
Sure. So while we're waiting for it to come up, the information on these slides is taken straight out of the reports. Council is involved in the development of 5 CMPs. Skip ahead a little bit.
You've got to control.
Oh, sorry, I can skip ahead a little bit. This is so, yes, as I said, council is involved in the development of 5 coastal management programs. They cover the areas of Tuggerah Lakes, the open coast, the lagoons, Hawkesbury and Nepean area, which includes Brisbane water, and also the Broken Bay beaches, Yamina and Beach, etc. That's a multi-council collaboration. Lake Macquarie, which is a collaboration with Lake City Council. The CMP process is quite, I guess, a rigid process in following the Coastal Management Manual. It's outlined of 5 stages, the 5th stage being the implementation. Stage 1 being a scoping study, 2, determine the risks, vulnerabilities and opportunities. 3 is to identify and evaluate options. 4 is the preparation, exhibition, finalisation, and then that certification by the Minister for the CMP, and then 5 being the implementation. So this is just an update on how we're tracking against the operational plan KPI targets for this financial year. For the Open Coastal Management Program, we're on track to bring that to the next meeting of the of this committee in June. For the Tuggerah Lakes CMP, we're currently out to the market for stages 3 and 4. I believe that closes next week for the completion of stage 3 and 4. That's on track to award that prior to end of financial year. For the coastal lagoons, we're currently on track for completing stages. We've completed that item, which is the award of the contract, and we're well underway with that stage 3. We completed our second community engagement workshop for that last Wednesday evening. And for the Hawkesbury and Nepean, we're also on track for completing stage 3 of that. All right. In terms of some of the reasons why it's taken a long time to complete CMPs, at least some of those and the lessons learned, I guess, along the way, it has taken a long time. Approximately 12 to 18 months per stage has sort of been the experience of this council and other councils as well. There's a lengthy time for assessment and approval of coast and estuary grants, usually sort of 6 months between application and notification, whether you're successful or not, and then obviously also in process, and any variations take time. Limited consultants are available as well. There's all councils are doing CMPs at the same time, so we're all fighting over the same consultants, and consultants are spread across multiple councils. There's limited technical guidance provided in the manual, but at the same time, there's also some changing rules that mean that we're constantly meeting with members of the state government and also seeking clarifications on some of the studies and what we can and can't put in coastal management programs. We're not alone in taking a long time to complete CMPs. Most other coastal councils have not completed their CMPs at this stage and are progressing at a similar rate to this council. Northern Beaches Council is an example of that. Newcastle have completed the Stockton area, but they're still underway trying to complete the remainder of their area. Mid Coast Council, similar as well. So approximately a rough calculation, about 25% of the coastline is captured by a certified CMP at the stage. However, we're keen as staff are very keen to see them all completed and are very motivated to get to completion. We're keen to get onto the implementation stage rather than the planning stage. Open Coast CMP, so what's remaining and estimated timeframes, like I said, looking to bring that to the next committee meeting. I've just outlined, which I did in the report as well, I guess each task that's needed between now and sort of issuing it for certification there by December this year. Hawkesbury and Nepean looking to complete that and issue for certification mid next year. Tuggerah Lakes still got a fair way to go. So 3 and 4, there's a few studies that need to be completed for stage 2, and so looking for that around mid to end of 2027. But if there's any opportunities to fast track that, we certainly will be looking at that.
So just mention what the stages are. Are you talking about the old study, then options, then that kind of process, or is it?
Yeah. So that dial on the second slide, which is the 1, 2, 3 process. So the coastal management manual outlines each of the stages and what's to be included, and there's like a 22-page checklist for CMPs as well as part of the certification process. And for coastal lagoons, we are looking mid next year for that as well. So we are well underway with a consultant.
Just out of interest, how many staff are working on this?
There's 12 in my section. Approximately probably half of those are working on CMPs, but consultants as well are doing the bulk of the heavy lifting, I guess. But they're also spread pretty thin trying to do tasks.
Who do you find, because it's such a long time between start and finish, things change? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I guess while we're planning, we're also implementing and learning from different projects, whether it be new access ways or different coastal protection works or works out at the entrance. Every time we're out there, we learn new things and apply that to the planning, and sometimes teach the consultants about what we've learnt as well. So it's constant learning, I guess.
Yeah.
And the recommendations that the committee note in the report.
Questions?
What sort of, I mean, I understand that these will be going on exhibition, but what sort of, are there opportunities for extra, community input rather than just the exhibition process? I'm just thinking about, like, for example, at the moment, I know it's a sort of a bigger, different ball game in lots of ways, but we've got sort of community engagement things going on where we've got various sort of pop-ups across the place where councillors will be involved in that. Community can come along and, have conversations, whatever, in regards to long-term financial plan and all that sort of stuff. Like, what opportunities do we have here? Because I think one of the issues is that obviously these issues around our lakes and our oceans, I mean, let's face it, we talk about this all the time with coastal erosion, this is something that obviously community members are incredibly impacted by and incredibly interested in. And really may be sort of assured that there will be more, I suppose, robust opportunities to be involved for the community rather than it just being bunging it on exhibition, which of course we have to do legally and we need to do it. But any input into that sort of those thoughts?
Yeah, we're certainly looking at those opportunities as part of the different stages. So
yes,
we have done pop-ups. So I can recall for the Open Coast, we did a number of pop-ups at different beaches at Avoca, Terrigal, and the like.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of them actually. So there isn't I guess what I'm saying is there isn't a point during these processes. I mean, obviously, once you get to the end, yes, I understand that's sort of in inverted commas the end, and you want it to be certified and all that. But there isn't a a barrier during this period of sort of development, implementation, et cetera, where the community couldn't have a bit more sort of input into things? Is there? I'm asking through the chair or anybody here who wants to answer me.
We've done a lot of that.
Yes.
So we've had multiple touch points for each CMP along the way. Like Ben said last week they had their second focus group for the Coastal Lagoons CMP. We had a series of focus groups in here a year or so ago. So I think there was 3 or 4 meetings in relation to the entrance channel, and there was with focus groups we call for EOIs from the community to participate in that, and a separate set of 3 or 4 meetings with the RAC management strategy for Tucker Lakes, with various other stages of the CMPs already to date. With the Open Coast CMP, for instance, we've had that on Your Voice Our Coast with social pinpoint tool where we can get people to drop everything. Like Ben said, we have had the pop-ups in various places around, I think Hawkesbury and Nepean, we did a lot. So we had stands at beaches and in estuary locations, different villages where people could come and engage with us. So we've tried to maintain that.
I think that's really important. I guess the other thing I'm wondering is, because so often sure, I probably can speak for myself, but other councillors probably have had similar experiences. You'll get people saying, but I didn't know. And have they done anything, or are they just making this all up without consulting with the community? And of course, we do our best to assure people that no, there are opportunities. But, is there at this point in the process, is this a good time to do some sort of very down to earth, plain English communication to the community about what's already been done, the sorts of things that have happened at those sort of engagement events, whatever, forums, just to try and get a bit of a picture at least out there of, what actually has been happening. I personally, I think that would be a really useful thing to do. I don't know what other committee members think.
Could I ask a question then of yourself? I mean, if that went out on public exhibition, that information there, is that what you're after, so they can then talk to you about those things and where you're up to?
I think it's,
they don't know what they don't know, right?
Well, that's right.
Say, this is where we're up to.
If you can do a really, really, really plain English thing of that, and even though I find that quite plain English, I also know sometimes people wouldn't, but then some examples around how it's been pulled together with community input, I just find that to be really quite valuable. And I'm not sure how to do it, but I just think we should. Yes.
I thinking, I didn't know all that consultation was happening. I wanted to go to it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't go. I love going to that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really annoyed about it.
Yeah. And you're in touch with things, Jane, too. Compared to some people, that might be so much.
I want to know what's next so that I can go to that. So I do think,
Our Coast.
Your Voice Our Coast.
Yeah.
And we did all get the email from the community person expressing concerns about decisions being made by staff or, or council for that matter. Before before the CMP is sort of.
Look, I think it's the case that a consultation has happened, but we've always got to be open to more.
I agree. I guess because they, there are some in the community raising concerns about how clear the consultation's kind of been. So,
I think it's
just raising it and
Just quickly, I don't disagree with any of that, but we need to encourage a greater cross-sectional feedback as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's always pockets of our community really passionate with talking about something that impacts the whole Central Coast too. So what's our strategy to try to engage those other people to have a say? That's really important.
Call extraordinary meetings on things that don't impact the whole of the Central Coast.
I think some of the approaches by especially some of the education staff in Ben's area, they've been quite innovative in trying to attract different cross sections. So they've done things like gone down to beaches with these pop-ups to consult with the community and given away surfboard wax in return for information on how we should manage our coastline.
Well, see, that's the sort of thing that is actually important for the community to know about. That actually we are there on the beach, you know, listening to people,
Yeah.
chatting to people, that we're not just sitting around in a council building, you know, kind of writing things up. I think it's really, you know, because that really is important, and it's great that everybody's doing that work and is committed to it.
And it's dragged on
Good
as
for
it's
you,
been,
you know.
staff probably, it's clearly people in the community saying, well, it's really been dragged on for us too. And so I think everybody wants resolution. Yeah, however, resolution would really, clear, community consultation. So, and since we came on board with council, there have been these examples, look, unintended probably, but nonetheless examples of how consultation, and a couple mentioned here tonight already, you know, of examples where consultation with the best of intentions still is falling flat in terms of, you know, good reach, extensive reach, acceptable reach. Yeah, so it seems that we can learn a lot from that.
All right, we're done on this, so we've now got a recommendation simply with the report. We'll
Just-
do that.
Sorry, can I just ask, would that presentation be available on the hub?
Yeah.
All these presentations?
Please.
Oh, hang on, we didn't get the motion for it. I'll move it. Have a seconder. Seconder, councillor Castles, there you go. Any further discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. All right, I declare the meeting closed at whatever time it is. 41.
Hey.
Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. Thank you particularly for the staff.
We're 11 minutes over.
I think there's competition there. Unusual.